Hi there. My name is Hannah Yore. I'm the director of international programs at SAGE. We're the world's oldest and largest organization dedicated to improving the lives of LGBTIQ older adults everywhere. Today I'm here with Reingard, an older lesbian woman from Germany, and we are here to talk about Reingard's life, her activism, her interests, and this is part of a larger storytelling project that we're working on to capture the voices of our global LGBTIQ community all over the world. So, Reingard, can we start with having you introduce yourself? We'll talk about where and when you were born, and a little bit about your childhood before we delve into your activism and your later years.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking me for an interview. And I'm calling from Germany, and I hope my English is okay. Everybody will understand what I mean. Sometimes I may have a couple of problems with some words, but I think we'll get along just fine. So, about me, I was born in Germany, in the very north of Germany, close to the Baltic Sea. And well, we were a family of, I have two sisters, I have one brother, and so that was quite a big family, you know. And my father died very early, so my mother was always in the center of the family. I think this is one of the things that is very important for my later life, because I grew up with strong women. Well, ask questions.
Lovely. Okay. So when and how did you first realize that you were a lesbian? What was your coming out process like?
It was a long process because in my early 20s, I mean, when you think about it, I was born in 1950,
Mhm.
and so I'm now 74 years old. And when you started and have relationships, mostly heterosexual relationships, because you do not know that there is an alternative. And so before I realized that I didn't really I didn't want relationships with men. That was it took some time. And it was actually the women's movement that got me in contact with other women, with other ideas, with other lifestyles. And that was very, very, very important to me, you know. And in all these relationships I had before, I knew always there was something missing, and I knew I had found it when I had my first relationship with a woman. But then I was nearly 30 years old, so it took
Mm,
me quite some time.
absolutely. Can you describe a little bit more about your work in the women's movement during those years? The people that you met, what it meant to you to be involved, the issues you were working on and concerned with politically?
Well, at that time it was in the 70s and 80s, I started the first women's groups everywhere. I was at the university back there, and we started our first groups there. And because women knew there's something wrong. And in Germany, the women's movement was very close with the lesbian movement.
Okay.
That was a little bit different, I think, than it was in other countries. And we just discovered for ourselves, our bodies, that what we really want and what was missing till then. Uh, uh, yes, and so the lesbian movement in Germany was much more connected with the women's movement than with like the gay men. So
Interesting. Yeah.
I think that was different in other countries, but this is how it was here.
Mhm.
And also the students' movement in the late 60s, early 70s also showed that there were other lifestyles possible, you know, that it was not the normal heterosexual marriage that was something that was that what people wanted, but we had more alternatives all of a sudden. You
Yeah.
know, see there's other lives are possible. And that was one of the very important things to me to find out what I really wanted to.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Were there things that surprised you when you first became involved in political or movement work? the way that you were received by the feminist movement. It sounds like the feminist movement and the lesbian movement in Germany were
Mhm.
intertwined and related in
Yes.
a way that, as you put, is different than in other countries, where there
Mhm.
was more fractures. But can you talk about your experience of coalition building? What maybe surprised you at the time, who you worked with, who your allies were, where there was maybe discomfort or difficulty building solidarity?
What was amazing was that especially the lesbian women, a lot of them had their coming out at the time also, that the lesbian women were very much engaged in also typically heterosexual subjects like the abortion and stuff like that. So that was something that I always found astonishing because those were not really the lesbian subjects,
Mm,
but it was something that was always very important in the movement.
mhm,
So, and a lot of women's places were founded, like bookshops and stuff like that, and restaurants, pubs, bars, and it was in the 80s. It just popped up everywhere,
mm, mhm.
and it was really great.
Yeah,
Here in
absolutely.
Hamburg, where I live in Hamburg, there were just women's places everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they're gone by now,
Right.
most
Well,
of
I was going to ask you about that next. I
them.
mean, how you've been involved in this work for years and years, and I would love to hear your reflections about how both the feminist movement and the lesbian movement have changed and evolved in your observation over time. If there are things that bring you hope and joy and excitement, if there are things that most concern you, what are your general reflections as you think about?
I mean, most of the lesbians I knew and that were kind of activists, they were feminists. They called themselves feminists. And feminism was merely a word that other people didn't even use because it was so, oh, feminist, oh, well, those are man-hating women.
Sure.
And it wasn't amazing that this feminism that later in the 2000s and 2010s, that all of a sudden there were a lot of women who were not lesbians called themselves feminists. So that changed in the decades. But we were very feministic. And we called themselves feminists in the first place and lesbians in the second.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and some of your and how we first got in touch is that your work right now focuses on aging and what it means to age as
Mhm.
an LGBTIQ person, as an older lesbian. I want to talk about the broader landscape of LGBTIQ aging, both in Germany and internationally, and the specific concerns and frankly threats facing LGBTIQ older people. But first, perhaps a bit of personal reflection on your life growing older. What has surprised you about aging? And then we'll talk about your broader reflections on
Mhm.
LGBTIQ older adults.
I mean, the first thing is that when I go back a little bit
Of course,
because
please, please.
when I had my coming out and I had my first relationships with women, I found out I didn't exist in the public anymore. That was one
Okay,
of the very, very, very important things for me because I was just surrounded by the heterosexual
sure.
relationship and people. And I think this is something and something that was important because kind of I tried I saw that there were so many differences in the rights that we had, the civil rights, that all of a sudden I could not have a legal relationship with my partner, for example, which to me, which I was involved with as a U.S. American woman. So and that time in the 80s, middle or eight, ladies 80s, we were we couldn't really live together in Germany and we couldn't really live together in the United States. So it was always a back and forth relationship, which was, and I found it very unfair that we didn't have the same right to just get married as others did.
Mhm.
So, and in Germany, it started 2001, at least you can have a legal relationship, but the same-sex marriage here is possible in Germany now since 2017. So there was a long way in between still. So on these are always things that always kept me outgoing and to be an activist because there were always points and always things that are not fair and that you have to fight for
Right,
or against.
right. How do you, and I want to pick up on something you just said in terms of your relationships and them being invisible to the state and not having
Mhm.
enumerated rights. Um, One, did you, after same-sex marriage became legalized in 2017, did you ever marry? Who do you consider your family in this moment? Do you have family of choice, children? Um,
Mhm.
I would love to hear more about that.
Okay. No, I don't have any children,
Okay.
and I never wanted to get married.
Mm.
A year ago, I did, so very
Oh,
late.
okay.
Because my partner and I, we decided to get married now since we just we wanted to have a legal status,
Yeah,
especially it has something to do with getting older. You
yeah,
know, it's very important when you get older that you have somebody that can not take care of you, but can take care of things and has a legal status to do
right,
it. And
right.
this is the only thing that we finally a year ago we got married
Yeah.
after 27 years of
Oh
relationship.
my goodness. Well, congratulations. What was that feeling like when you got married? Did you have a ceremony? Did it just
Oh,
feel
yeah,
dramatic or
we didn't have a great ceremony. We
okay.
just went and a small one, and we just wanted. And then half a year later, we made a big party. So, and it was a birthday and wedding and everything together.
So fun. Lovely, lovely. Um, I mean, that is something I've heard a lot from older adults, folks that I work with, that they had not thought about getting married and actually, in some cases, were politically opposed to the institution of marriage. But as they got older and as their
Mhm.
health became more precarious, they understood marriage as a strategy, sort of
Yeah.
in the same way that you're describing. Um,
Mhm.
so, in addition to marriage, the institution of marriage, what other things have surprised you about aging? I'm hearing a little bit about health, being able to make decisions for you and your partner, caretaking, caregiving.
Mhm.
What else has shaped your experience of growing older?
Well, I noticed that I know that I collected a lot of wisdom through my life. That sounds a little bit funny, I
No,
think,
I
but
like it. I
it
like it.
feels just great. I feel like I know a lot of things, and it makes me a little bit more relaxed and laid back. On the
Okay.
other hand, my body doesn't do as much as I wanted it.
Mm,
I'm still in the process of accepting that I cannot do everything that I used to
yeah.
do. I was always I did everything myself in the household and kind of putting things together. And so I know there are things that I cannot do anymore, and I have to accept that. That is sometimes a little bit difficult.
Right. Right. Do you have relationships with younger people or other people in your community that are able to help you with those things?
Yes, I live in a house here where they have a group of we are 18 women. Each has our own apartment, but we can just help one another. So we have like on a WhatsApp or something on a group and say, well, I need this. Does anybody have it? So it's very, very good. I mean, I like that
Yeah.
since I do not live together with my wife.
You do
We
not
have
live together with your
no,
wife.
we have
Okay.
separate apartments, and that works out just fine.
Nice. Yes.
I think
Um,
when you get older, it's one of the things when you get older, you need more your own space.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So when you said that sometimes you feel more relaxed or it's exciting to have acquired all of this knowledge um, and wisdom as you got older, are there certain things that come to mind or maybe advice or pieces of knowledge that you would want to pass on to younger LGBTIQ people, younger lesbians in
Mhm.
particular? Um, Things that you perhaps wish you knew in your 20s or 30s or 40s?
Well, yes, I think I would have done things differently,
Okay.
but it's not that I say, well, I should have, or why didn't I? I'm
Yeah.
not, this is not a problem because
Right.
at
Not
that time,
regret, but just,
no,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
at that time it was the right thing to do. I mean, I
Mhm.
had for sure I had reasons to do it the way I did it.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
what is something you want younger lesbians to know about older lesbians? I think so much of the LGBTIQ movement is focused on visibilizing youth and young people, and that is so very important. Our young LGBTIQ people are, particularly in this political moment, suffering tremendously, but I don't think we make enough, at least in my opinion and observations, room and space for the stories of our elders. Um, are there things that you wish younger lesbians understood about aging, understood about the unique experience of being an older lesbian?
I think most of them don't really know how it is to get older. I think
Mhm.
have a little bit of fear of it.
Yeah,
It's something that makes you less important or less able to do things, which is not true. At least for me, it's not true because I just do now other things than I did before.
mhm.
But I notice also that there's a great interest for younger people to know how we did it back then. I mean, it starts already. How do you get in touch when you didn't have any cell phones?
Right,
For example, how do you connect?
right.
You know, and we said, well, there was a telephone,
Maybe not an
and
iPhone, but there was a telephone,
no, there was a
right?
telephone,
Right.
and stuff like that. So sometimes there are very funny questions that come.
Yeah,
But they just wanted to me, that means they want to know more about how it was back then.
yeah.
Because this is something that you cannot look it up on the internet.
Mhm. Right,
No?
right.
So I had already some talks between younger and older generation, and I think it's a great process of getting in touch with one another. And it
Yeah.
also means that um, you have you can talk, you can tell things, but you also have to listen on
Mhm.
both sides.
Mhm.
So, because they have they have a different look on life, and I think this is very interesting to hear, and I still can learn from
Yeah.
them.
Um, so how have you maintained a sense of community with other older LGBTIQ adults? I want to hear more about your organization and the work that you're doing with older queer people in Germany. Why is this work
Mhm.
important, especially since we know so many older LGBTIQ people face tremendous loneliness and isolation?
Mhm. I mean, in Germany now it is more that the lesbians work more with gay men together and trans persons. There's still a group of older lesbians that say, no, we don't want to work, we don't want to have any connection to them. We are lesbians, we are women, and we want to stay we want to stay separate. This is
Okay.
one of the big conflicts that we
Yeah.
have in the community right now.
Yes.
I think it's elsewhere, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
For myself, I think that this community, as we always talk about it, this LGBTIQ community, there are just some interesting perspectives and coming together. So I work a lot more with other groups now together inside the community. But we also, and as the organization Lesbian in Old Age, as we call themselves, Lesben und Alter, we are just a lobby organization. We try to find to influence the politics to get the living conditions of older lesbians, better living conditions all over, in overall, as in like housing, working, some of them work still, in pensions, in participation of life in general. And one big thing to tell also in public, we exist because women are also, especially older women, kind of get a little bit less seen in society, and older lesbians are something, a group that for most people doesn't exist.
Right.
So, no, and
Right.
this is very important to say we are there, and we are about in Germany uh, about 500,000 lesbian women age 60 and over. So
Mhm.
this is what we estimated. So that's quite a big group.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Um, are there any particular pieces you talked about policy of legislation that your group is advocating for in this moment in Germany, or either in this moment or have advocated for historically? Just thinking about the specifics and some of your advocacy demands.
Mhm. Right now, we are just trying to keep the rights that we have reached, that we can keep them. We don't want
Yeah.
the backlash because the
Yeah.
value is it's everywhere in the world.
Mhm.
It's just that these heterosexual values of family are coming back to us, and we are confronted with it all the time. And as you probably know, we have elections in 10 days here in Germany.
Yes.
There is a right-wing party that is getting more and more and more votes over the last couple of years. So we are fighting and try to get them smaller, but we have to prepare for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is one of the big things that is just for everybody, which is who is a little bit not only the queer community, but all people who want something else.
Right. Absolutely. So Reingard, we have gone through many of the questions that I wanted to talk to you about today, but I also want to give us a little bit of space if there are other things that you want to share, anything about your life, your joys, things that are on your mind before we close out. I want to give you the last word.
One of the biggest things is that I can say now that I am already 74, it was a great life what I had so far.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things a lot of people think, oh, people who are queer, who are gay, lesbians, they have such a sad life because they are not as everybody else is. So it must make them lonely. No, I'm not lonely. Especially I think when you are active and an activist, you are in all kinds of groups, and that is so important. And I had a lot of fun in my life.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
that keeps you very, very, very alive.
Mhm.
This feeling of I did something, I did my share of changing things, and it gives you a good feeling.
I love that. I think that's a wonderful place to end. I'm so grateful for your time, you sharing a little bit about your life and perspective with me. And as I said with you before we started recording, it's really special for me personally to what we're talking about right now is the intergenerational relationships as a younger lesbian here in the States, having the opportunity to learn from you and hear from you as an older lesbian in Germany. I just am so appreciative and grateful. So thank you, Reingard.
Well, thank you.